Welcome back to the book club with none other than Husky Hefe. And today, here's the summary for Rich Dad Poor Dad, Chapter 2. Chapter 2 was entitled, Why Teach Financial Literacy? I told you in the previous video that it's always good to, take notes. It's good to know what you're talking about, know what you're retaining. But maybe that's the conventional method of how we learn. But anywho, I took some notes. And let's jump right into the summary of Chapter 2. So Chapter 2 starts off with Rich Dad talking about the richest businessman that he known, or at the time in about 1923 or so. And all these businessmen sat down. They had all this buku of money. But when it was time for these guys to die, and all of it happened to happen around 1929, which is the market crash. So he's leaving some room for error to be in that. Like maybe they lost a ton of money in that. But when it was time for their calling home, wherever home may be, those guys actually died broke or didn't die as rich as they were when they was alive. And he kind of, in this chapter, he kind of, what do I say? He gives that an attribute of financial literacy. I feel like that's what he's going for, but I can't say that because they was rich while they were living. But hey, that's my battle. So, financial literacy, and I'm just gonna go through my notes. One thing that stuck out to me, he said, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So that was at the beginning of the chapter. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Rich men died broke around 1929, which I just told you, and it was possibly because of the market crash. But he also says that this day and age, times are moving way faster, so we can probably expect some booms and some busts. Isn't that funny? What could we say was a bust now?
This is yet another attempt to impeach the president. And sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake. We must test for the virus in order to stop the spread of it.
The less there is to worry about. I was about to say the same thing. We don't have immunity to this virus. It's a new virus.
The virus being so much more deadly doesn't reflect reality. Without a vaccine, the flu would be far more deadly. We are facing an incredibly contagious and dangerous virus that is moving across the world from one hotspot to another.
We're going to call out anyone against the president. The standard flu every single year kills 10.
You got it. But he says one flaw is the focus is on money, but not on the greatest wealth is education. Now it was very funny in this chapter that he said the greatest wealth is education, because his poor dad, who is highly educated, is considered his poor dad, and his rich dad, who is less educated, is considered his rich dad. I think I just said that twice. But nevertheless, it kind of confused you, because it's like, okay, so are you saying I should get educated or should I drop out? No. See, that's what he's trying to let you know. Financial literacy is the best thing to combat this. So, and financial literacy, might I add, is a form of education. It's where most education gives you words. Financial literacy deals in words, but it also deals in numbers, and a subsequent amount of that education is dealing with the numbers and what the story is behind those numbers. Man, I think I just went off. So it's all about the story. Always remember, it's all about the story that the numbers are trying to tell you. And I can say that, that is something that a lot, when it comes to me, like as far as me, wanting to invest in all this certain stuff, when I see those numbers, they're intimidating. And I was good at math, so why am I intimidated? Intelligence solves problems, he says, and produces money. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. So in chapter 2, he gives you a lot of cases. In the case of someone who hits the lotto, They come into this inheritance, but their mindset and their mindset will lead them back to their same habits. Their knowledge, unless they go and get educated, their knowledge isn't there about financial literacy. So they end up making the same mistakes that they made when they were broke. They start gaining more liabilities rather than assets. Rule number 1, he says, you must know the difference between assets and liabilities, and once you do, buy assets. He wanted you to also be mindful that there are liabilities that may seem to be assets, but you must dig deep. That's where you have to look at those numbers and what those numbers are telling you. A quick definition: assets are things that you, as a human being, you do to gain income, right? So let's say I go and buy I buy a stock, and the stock grows over time. It's bringing money back to me. My money is working for me. I'm gaining assets. Liabilities is when you go and get something that causes you to have an expense. And one big thing he talks about is when people believe that their house is the biggest asset, he says it's false, because your house comes with the most expenses. Now, he's not saying don't go out and get a house, because as I would say nowadays, a house is more affordable than an apartment. But he's saying don't go above and beyond. He also mentions that a lot of people fall because they try to keep up with the Joneses. So they want this spectacular house. But with this spectacular house, it's going to come with spectacular expenses. If things break, things go south. And if you have all your money tied up into this house, then you have no money to invest. So that means you can't push money into your assets, which will boost your income, which will lower the expense. So I'm going to keep it simple. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put up the charts. The first one is and it's called the cash flow pattern. And so simply put, there's one cash flow pattern. This is the first one. It's cash flow pattern of an asset. This one is the cash flow pattern of a liability. Now this is the cash flow pattern of a poor person. This one is the cash flow pattern of a middle class person. Now this one is probably going to be full. Now this one is the cash flow pattern of a rich person. So from these charts, he's giving you a breakdown. He's giving you a breakdown of assets, liabilities, and it's more financial terms. Like the top portion is called the profits. Let me look it up because I do not want to mess up. We're in this together, so don't judge me. Let's see. So the top part of the diagrams that you see is the income statement, or often called the profit and loss statement. Then the bottom part is the balance sheets. So it's all back to checks and balances. If you don't have enough money coming in, you shouldn't be going over your means and keeping up with Mrs. Jones. It's just simple as that. Yeah, so let's see. Like I said, assets are defined by numbers, and you must know how to read the numbers. So that's the biggest thing. And he was trying to get across in this chapter about, just being financially literate so you can sustain inflation. And also, as it relates to the previous videos, I think I was, one thing was stated about the long term, how a job is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. In this chapter, he tells you what the long-term problem is. And I'm going to cover that tonight in the book club. So, yeah, take a second. You can pause the video. Make sure you look at those charts, see if you understand it. And it will be beneficial because I really want to dive deep into that tonight. And forgive me for looking down because I'm trying to make sure I'm hitting everything. Oh, and this was a great definition. He said, wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward. Or if I stop working today, how long could I survive? So that definition came from a man named R. Buckminster Fuller. He said some people call him a quack, but it makes sense. Broken down, it just means, he gave an example in here. If my assets column brings in $1,000 a month and my expenses are $2,000 a month, how long can I survive? Well, we put 1,000 over 2,000, which is 1/2. You can only survive for half of that month. So he kind of tells you need to start looking at gaining those assets and let the assets that's why you want to have money to invest in those assets and stop forking off so much to liabilities. But hey, we'll dive deeper into that today. Yeah, so chapter 2, financial literacy, man, it was cut plain and simple. The rich buy assets. The poor, they only have expenses. The middle class buy liabilities that they think are assets. So always remember, there is a catch to some of these assets. You got to read those numbers, read the story behind, dig deep. We can't, in today's society, everything is so quick. And we want it quick. We got to have it quick. Like, I wish I had a bazillion people in the book club right now. But I know over time, it takes time to get it. So, because everything is so quick, guess what? People end up making bad investments in what they thought were assets, which are actually liabilities. So don't get caught up. So that's it. That summarizes chapter 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I shall be here tonight. Tonight I shall be here. And I will be in the club meeting. So if you want, come and we'll talk about chapter 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Thank you for coming so far. If you have seen this video, if I read, you read, and we read, then we can make the world a better place. Simple as that, man. You got to change yourself before you can change this world. Hey, I'll see you later.